Hi there. Welcome to chapter 12. In this chapter we are talking about definitions or tracing the boundaries of what something really means and how to get that understanding across to our reader. Starting a work with a definition may be helpful when basic terms may be in doubt. If you know your reader is not very familiar with your topic, definitions will help introduce it and make your reader more comfortable. There are so many different subjects, professional areas, what have you, that have their own lingo, their own language, their own abbreviations, definitions, you name it. And if you know you're writing for an audience that is not particularly familiar with your subject, you're going to have to take the time to define these things for them. For example, amongst many things that I have done academically, I have also received my associate's degree in paralegal studies. Now, if I was to write a paper about paralegal education, becoming a paralegal, something along that line, more than likely at some point in that paper, I would reference Nala. Nala? Nala? No, not the Lion King, Nala. I would be referring to the National Association of Legal Assistants. Now, if I was writing for a readership that, are not paralegals, but perhaps are interested in investigating that career a bit further, I would have to define that. If I was writing an article for publication in a paralegal magazine or journal, I probably wouldn't have to define that term, because paralegals would be the people reading my article in that case, and paralegals know what NALA is. Okay, a stipulative definition. This defines how you are using a term more fully. There's definition, and then there's a deeper definition. For example, addiction is a term that has many facets to it. We can be addicted to chocolate. We can be addicted to shopping. We can be addicted to television. That's one kind of an addiction, sort of. But if we're talking about addiction in reference to drug abuse or alcohol abuse or prescription medication abuse, which seems to be galloping to the forefront these days, that's a very different type of addiction. So you would have to stipulate that. You would have to go one step further in explaining your definition and tell your reader how you're using that term. I can say I'm addicted to chocolate. Most people who say that really aren't. They just really, really like chocolate and probably eat more of it than they should. But if they stop eating chocolate, they might get a little cranky, but they're not going to probably go through the DTs and detox and all the other nightmarish things that go along with, ending drug use or alcohol consumption. So Make sure your reader is clear on how you are using this particular word. What is the context in which you are using this particular word? There is an extended definition, going into greater detail and using other elements to define your subject. For example, if you were writing on what poetry is in general, you might want to talk about different types of poetry and give examples of those types. That would better help you define for your reader just what poetry is. You might also want to compare and contrast different types of poetry. Extended definitions, they can define a word, such as poetry, or a thing, like a laser beam, or a concept, like schizophrenia. Perhaps you're going to have to do a little discovery yourself, discovery of meanings. Is your subject unique, or are there similar ideas? If it resembles other ideas, or they're the same, how are they different? In what different forms does it occur while keeping its own identity? How does a woman's experience in the Army relate to a girlfriend who is suspicious of all men? Interesting. I don't know. I have only known a few women who have been in the Army, and I don't know if some of them end up having a suspicious attitude towards men as a result of their Army experience or not. I suppose it's possible. Where do we find definitions, ways to explain terms and concepts to our readers? Can we find it at work, at school, at home? Quite possibly. What is it at the present moment? What is that term or concept? What is the status of it at the present moment? For example, what is the status of sexism in this country now, as opposed to the 1970s or the 1960s? We just had a woman run for the office of President of the United States of America. I grew up in the 70s, 60s and 70s. I'm dating myself. But anyway, that would never have happened. That would never have happened. Nowadays, women can do just about anything they want to as long as they're qualified. When I was in grade school, most moms stayed home. Most women did not work outside the home. A working mom was the exception, not the rule. Is that the way it is now? No, it's almost exactly the opposite now, as opposed to when I was growing up. Perhaps comparing the status of your topic you're defining, comparing its present-day status to the past might help increase the level of your reader's understanding. We still, I'm sure, have a long way to go in terms of females in the workplace. But if you put that into context with where things were in the not that distant past, you can say, wow, we have come a long way. What does it do? For example, sexist stereotype and sometimes exclude people or oppress people of the opposite sex. That's the working definition of sexist. You could do a process analysis, perhaps using your own personal experience. If you've been discriminated against based upon gender, or the experience of someone else that you know, or relate an experience that you have heard about, read about, seen happen, relating terms and concepts down to a personal level gives the reader a clearer understanding of what you're talking about. How is it put together? What parts make it up? What holds these parts together? You could apply all the various attitudes and beliefs that make up sexism. There are several. I'm not a sexist, but my guess would be a sexist person might think women aren't as intelligent as men, can't do the same kinds of jobs men can do, are the weaker sex, or the inferior sex. They shouldn't be given the same opportunities in the workplace as men because they're going to go off and have babies and leave the job anyway. All different types of attitudes lumped together under an umbrella that is called sexism. When you're talking about definitions, how do you develop it? Well, beginning with a short definition of your term is good. However, like we have talked about in the past, incorporating stories, personal analogies, examples, anything that can really bring home the true meaning of whatever it is that you're trying to define. Your thesis, your aim is to center all your thoughts and ideas toward one main concept. If your contention is that sexism still exists today, all your definitions, examples, evidence should support that idea. You lay out the definition, and you apply that definition to the status of your topic as it is today. Evidence. You always have to have evidence. Definition is just like any other type of writing. In fact, you have to support your interpretations with concrete, understandable evidence. You can describe sexism all day long and never tell your reader what it is. You can give examples, tell stories, but if you haven't laid out a clear-cut definition of what you believe sexism is, your reader's going to be left wondering, how do these stories fit in to the definition of sexism? How do they fit in? What does this mean? So your definition checklist. Meanings. Have you provided the obvious and not so obvious meanings of your definition? Sometimes there are meanings that aren't So obvious. Have you used an appropriate range of other methods to develop your subject? Analogies, stories, research to support your definition. Thesis. Have you focused your definition and kept within that focus, drawing clear boundaries for your subject? Maybe sexism is too big. Maybe you want to talk about sexism in the workplace. Draw clear boundaries for your subject. Evidence. Is your definition specific? Do you have examples, anecdotes, and concrete details that pin the subject down and make it more vivid? Okay. I have never, to my knowledge, been denied a position based on gender. I was, however, many, many years ago, denied a promotion based on age, and I was too young. My boss didn't think I could hold a good enough command over the sales force because I was considerably younger than they were. But that was back in the mid-80s. We were still trying to evolve. Unity. Do all paragraphs focus on your thesis, and do individual paragraphs or groups of paragraphs focus on parts of your definition? You've got your main idea. Sexism in America still exists today. Does that main idea run through your entire body of work? Do individual paragraphs or groupings of paragraphs focus on parts of your definition? Do you have information that supports your contention for sexism in the workplace, for sexism in education? So therein lies the subject of definition. Make sure that your explanation is clear and defined, and your reader knows how you are using a particular term, in what context, and stick to it. So here ends definition. You have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you in the next chapter.